because the mentorship program is one of the key pieces of the executive development program. We put a lot of time and effort into trying to figure out how do we help you get the most out of your experience in the classroom. And the decision we made is we wanted the classroom to be more experiential learning rather than didactic learning, meaning we don't want to just have talking heads up here talking. We want you to really be able to be actively engaged, and Dave really hammered that point home, I thought, very effectively this morning. So we've given the instructors that information, but we said, well, what else could we do to really make your experience in the classroom more meaningful? So we came up with the idea of saying we want you to do 4 to 6 hours of homework on that topic before you come to class. Now some of you are going to look at it, Brady, you might look at it and say, okay, I'm going to be analyzing bank financial statements, and you're in marketing, and you go, what? I mean, what does all this mean? So I will tell you that in every class, somebody will feel like a fish out of water, because it's going to be a topic that you just aren't comfortable with, you don't know a lot about. That's okay. That's why you have a mentor. So the idea of pairing you up with a mentor is that you get your homework assignment. We want you to take a look at that homework assignment, review it, and then sit down with your mentor and say, here's what my homework assignment is. You're not asking them to do the homework assignment for you, but rather what we'd love to see you do is discuss it. Do some research on your own about the topic, and be very candid with your mentor and say, I don't know a thing about this. I mean, I really, who's the first person I talk to at the bank? Because I really don't have a clue. And have them direct you to talk to other people within your institution. And then you sit down and say, all right, if I was interviewing Lindsay on this topic, what questions would I want to ask her? And then sit down and be proactive and write out some questions. Because what's this doing for you? It's doing a couple things. It's giving you an opportunity, Leo, to get face time with people in your organization that maybe you wouldn't normally interact with. They're going to start seeing you in a different light than your typical role, because it's easy to get typecast, isn't it? You're in retail, or you're in commercial, or you're in HR, right? Or you're in marketing. And what we're trying to do is, or you're in IT. We're trying to give you an opportunity to learn skills in other parts of the bank, and the best way to do that is to interface with the people who are driving those efforts at your institution. So that's what the mentoring programs are really all about. So have those interviews, meet with people, try to get your questions answered, try to answer the question on your own. We don't expect you to come in and have all the answers right. But if you do, that's great. But what's the likelihood that Bank of the Pacific might do things a little bit differently than Columbia Bank? Right? Possibly. Or Community Bank might do things a little bit different than Inland Northwest, right? It's going to be a little bit different. So the other thing we do is we take it one more step. And that is, after you've done your homework on your own, we then break you down into groups of 5. So there's 7 groups of 5 that's your study group. And we'll go over that this afternoon. But we're going to ask you then to get on a conference call with 5 other people, none of which are from your bank, all have differing backgrounds in banking. And we want you to say, what did you find out, Tara? Right? What did you find out? What was your answer to this? And what did you find out? York. And we want you to compare notes, because we know that it's done differently at every bank. That's a big part of the learning process before you even enter the classroom and start listening to that topic. Okay? So does that make sense to you? We've got a lot of your mentors here today, and this was an idea that came from this year. Where's Kelly? I know Kelly's here somewhere. Where are you sitting, Kelly? There you go. Kelly's group and also the team in Utah said what we really think would be neat would be to have the mentors here the first day of class so that they could understand what's expected of them, and we then have kind of a burden on our shoulders to say we need to do this because the mentors know what our responsibilities are. And it kind of holds everybody equally accountable, right? So that's why we had this luncheon and invited the mentors this morning and then for this luncheon. So what we'd like to do at this time is maybe Liz has got, do you have the microphone, Liz?
I do, but it doesn't work.
Okay.
So that's
all right. So maybe what we could do is, if you're a mentor, maybe we could start here. And Joe, maybe just stand up, say who you are. And
Hi, I'm Joe Marconi. I'm the Chief Risk Officer at American West Bank, based in Spokane.
Great. Thank you for being here. Dave?
Dave Rainey, Vice President, Residential Lending and Sound Community Bank.
Great, and a graduate of our first class. Good to have you back, Dave. How about here?
Sally Wilson, Bank of the Pacific. I'm the Vice President and IT Manager.
Thank you, Sally.
Jeff Sumter, Co-President, CEO of Lewis and Clark Bank in
And Karen was one of our students last year. Did a great job. Thank you. Here? Go ahead.
Ed Eng, I'm Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer for Whitby Island Bank.
Darren Johnson, Senior Vice President and Controller for Whitby Island Bank.
I'm Matt Ray. I'm a Senior Vice President, Regional Manager on the commercial side for Whitby Island Bank.
I'm Jeff Jewell. I'm the President and Chief Operating Officer of Heritage Bank. You may have picked up on the fact that we're sitting together. And we're in the process of a merger between the two banks. I just want to take 1 second longer. I am the Chairman of the Education Committee of the WBA. So I work very closely with Liz and the team on a variety of undertakings, including this program. Liz and her team have done a great job putting it together. It's year 5. And I was delighted to hear Sarah ask me to be a mentor, because this gives me a chance to participate through her in the whole program, so I can be a bigger advocate of the program overall. So last year I did sit through one of the classes. I think it was about analyzing financial statements. And it was a very good class, but getting back to what Joe said, I could see some people who are so removed from that part of the bank really struggling, but by the end of the day they had a pretty good feel for how it all works. So I think you're going to enjoy this program, so good luck.
Thanks, Jim.
Mark Dressback, Chief Lending Officer at Inland Northwest Bank in Spokane, Washington. And I went to the course too.
Yeah.
I barely graduated.
No. That's not true. That's not true. You're a great student. It's great to have you back, Mark.
Good to be back.
Shirley?
Shirley Hafner, Community Bank, and the Senior Vice President of Internal Audit.
Thank you, Shirley. How about here?
And Terry Decker, Executive Vice President, CFO, Anchor Bank.
Thank you.
Jerry Shaw, President and CEO.
Thank you, Jerry. Good to see you here. This table here?
I'm Sandra McEwen. I manage commercial banking in Oregon, Southwest and Southeast Washington for Columbia Bank. Never had a familiarity with this program, but I went to PCBS starting in 1991, and you are so all very fortunate to have Dave Anchor, who I recall from 20 plus years ago, and that's exactly the same.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Sean Brennan, Chief Lending Officer, Puget Sound Bank in Milligan.
Great. Thanks, Shirley.
Mike Cannon, Chairman and CEO of Business Bank up in Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Mike. Good to see you. Back here, do we have one?
Linda
Here?
Norman.
No, here? Yes.
Damon Harrison, Director of Retail at People's Bank.
Oh, great. Good to see you.
Kelly Liskey, Chief Banking Officer at First Federal, and I graduated last month from this program. You guys are in for a real treat.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you. How about a hand for all of our mentors? So I'm thinking, as short as I am, you could probably see me better standing here than over there, right? So I stand here. Does that work all right for everyone? We put in front of you a handout that really covers the mentorship program that we developed specifically for this program. And I just would like to, if you could pull that out. Before I go over, I just want to cover a couple other things that were items, bits of feedback that we got from the classes over the years. One of them was that we would like to have the students, after they've met with you, you've directed them on who they talk to, they've done their homework, they've gone to class, when they first meet with you again the next time, we would like the students to give you like a 5-minute briefing on, what did I learn? You know, it's one thing to do something, but it's another thing when you relive it and you explain to your mentor. What it does is it gives an accountability to that student to make sure and share with their mentor, here's what I learned from the homework assignment, from the people I interacted with. These are my aha moments in class, things that I wasn't aware of before I went in. So if you could just, that's not on the sheet, so you might want to make note of that, but we would ask you to do that. This again was some feedback we got. We also asked the students to set an agenda for you. So when they sit down, having been a mentor myself for most of my career, I have an employee come in, or I still mentor people now, they come in, and what happens a lot of times, Shirley? Yeah. Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Can you
Yeah,
repeat
What was
that,
the answer?
Joe?
It's basically saying it makes a big difference when the students have to go over what they've learned from that class and the experience they had with you, really reinforces it. The other thing is making sure that they come to you and say, here's what my goal is, here's what I'm trying to accomplish, right? It's important to have that interaction. What I find sometimes with employees that I mentor is they come in and they want to talk to me, but I don't know, Kim, what they want to talk to me about. They just want to come in and talk. And so it's really helpful. It shows a sensitivity to my time as your mentor to come in and have a list. These are the 5 things I want to talk to you about. And you might even email them to me ahead of time, which really shows me that your head's in the game. You're not just going to come and talk about, well, what did you do over the holidays and what's going on? What do you think of, the Mariners, Seahawks going to win this weekend, and that's fine, but that's not where you're coming to meet with me, right? We'd like you to quarterly sit down and review with your mentor as well. What's been going on? What did you learn the last quarter? You do it every month, but do a quarterly review. Kind of, if you had an employee that you were managing, one of the habits that I always had is I would meet one-on-one with every one of my managers every month. That's a lot. But if you do it at least once a quarter, it gives you an opportunity to share with them what you're learning, how's this relationship going, and as we go through this document, you'll see it gives you an opportunity to be really candid with each other and get the most out of the mentoring experience. So let's look at this document that we handed out to you. We ask you to meet monthly, and again, that's because that's when the homework assignments are. There has to be a commitment. If you look at the bottom of that last paragraph, it says, therefore, the third paragraph, I'm sorry, therefore, a firm commitment to the mentoring process and willingness to invest time and energy are the most important components for a successful relationship. It's a commitment on both your parts, isn't it? If I'm coming into this as your mentor and I'm seeing you're doing it kind of halfway, how am I going to feel as a mentor? I'm going to feel like you're wasting my time, right? What kind of image does that give me about you as a future leader in the organization? Not very good, does it? One of the things that we found is people like Dave and Kelly and others Mark, who've gone through the program, many of them ended up getting promoted within that same year they're in the program or immediately thereafter. Well, it's not because they didn't put a lot into the program, it's because they put a heck of a lot into the program, they learned a lot, and they demonstrated that to their leadership. So it's really important for you as a mentee to really have your act together and be respectful of the time of the mentor, because you want to provide this, you want to be professional in what you're doing, right? If I'm going to look at Kim as a future leader in the organization at a higher level than where you're at now, then I expect her to act that way, and to think that way, and to behave that way, right? So the first bullet point here, number 1, ask for advice and welcome constructive criticism. This goes for both. What you're going to find is there's 2 parts of this. One's for the mentee and one's for the mentor. You're going to find that they're almost identical. The key piece here is, if I'm going to Mark and I'm asking him for constructive criticism because I'm the mentee, I want him to be brutally honest with me, right? I don't want him to pull the punches. I want to know, what do I need to do to get better at what I'm doing? If I don't know that, how am I going to improve? And I don't want him to peanut butter it either. I want him, I want him to do it tactfully, but to let me know, gee, Joe, these are the things, you said last month you learned this, but we had talked about these other things. What happened? So hold my feet to the fire a little bit as a mentor, because this is a 1-year developmental program I should be proactive in my learning as a student, and if I'm not doing that, then as a mentor, kick me in the butt a little bit. Okay? Make sure that I'm doing it. Be considerate, number 2, of the mentor's time. We talked about that a little bit, right? If you're going to meet with me, how much time do you need? Is it 15 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? Is it half an hour? Is it an hour? How much time do you really need? I think for me as a mentor, the thing that was most important, Patty, was to look at it and say, well, it's not about the quantity of time, but it's how we're using that time. If as a mentor, you came in and had a whole list of things you wanted to go over, and I felt like I was really making a difference in your life, then you don't feel like you're wasting the time, do you? But if you come in and you're just kind of drifting along and we really don't have a structure to it the way it ought to be, then I'm going to get frustrated as a mentor. So be considerate of their time. Number 3, listen to what your mentor has to say. You know, sometimes I will tell you as a mentee, those of you who are mentors, how many of you have been mentees before? Been on the other side of it. Was it hard getting constructive criticism at times? Yeah, sometimes it is. I mean, if you're like me and your feelings are maybe being worn on your sleeve that day, and somebody gives you some constructive criticism, you might go, oh, God, what did I do to deserve this today? Right? The point is, you want that honest feedback, don't you? You really need that. So listen to what they have to say. If you're not sure, then ask open-ended questions back to your mentor to make sure it's really clear to you. Okay? One of the failures in the mentor program over the last 4 years, as we've talked to students, is that they start out really eager, you know, that first month, second month, third month, and then it kind of peters out. And we were surprised last year when we asked some of the students, well, you know, how's it going with your mentor? And I don't know, Kelly, you're probably as surprised as the rest of us, because I think you're one of the ones who was meeting pretty regularly with yours. But some of them said, well, I stopped meeting with my mentor about after the 6th month. And I'm going, wait a minute, that's part of the program. So if your mentee doesn't start showing up, would you jerk their chain a little bit for us? Say, where are you? You know, we're paying for you to be in this program. We're paying to maximize your learning opportunities here. If you're not doing it, then where the heck are you? So I would do that if it was one of my students. Number 4, I already talked about. You know, it's going to be hard sometimes to get constructive criticism you don't like to hear, but it's important. That's how you grow personally and professionally. You need to have that coach. I think you're very, very fortunate to have the quality of mentors that you have here today that will be working with you, especially, you know, you look at the years of experience. If we went around and asked the mentors how many years of experience they have, it would, you know, probably start out where our senior person was in the class this morning and upwards from there. Number 5, show your appreciation. Let them know you like what's going on. You appreciate their time. Don't take them for granted. As a mentor, that was one of the things that really would bother me. I can tell you there's one young man that I started mentoring when he was a junior in college. The day he graduated from college, I made him a branch manager on my team. He still calls me today. He's the highest ranking Asian in his bank. And we still meet every 90 days. And I've never had a mentee who makes me feel more beneficial to his career and help him out more in my whole life. And we don't even work together. So what does he do? What does he do to let me know that he appreciates? He talks about, he remembers things that I mentioned to him, advice that I gave him maybe months or a year earlier. You know, say, remember, we met last year, second time we met, you gave me this bit of advice. This is what I did. Now, what do you think I'm thinking as a mentor? Yeah, he paid attention. He did something about it. So do the same thing with your mentor. If you're a mentee, if they give you advice, I don't want to give you advice just to see you say, okay, great, and then walk off and do the same, keep doing the same thing. I want to see a change in your behavior. So demonstrate that. Again, it shows that you're willing to be coached. You know, that it's possible for you to grow and be better at what you're doing, and you're eager to do that. And your ego's not so big that it's not going to allow you to do that. Because that gets in our way sometimes, doesn't it? Or our feelings do. You just can't let that happen. That's hard sometimes. It is. Number 6. Make only positive or neutral comments about your mentor to others. I just got out of my mentoring session. Darren here says, Joe, you know, you got to fish or cut bait. I mean, you're talking about all this stuff, but you're not doing it, you know? And we've been meeting for the last couple months, and you're really, I'm not seeing you be as passionate as you need to be about your homework. So, what might I do? If I was a great employee and I was really wanting to grow, what would I do? I'd say thank you, and I'd go back and I'd clean my act a little bit, wouldn't I? I'd take his feedback and say I need to do something different. If I wasn't that way, what might I do? Go badmouth him, yeah. And how many times, I mean, and I hate to say it, but it's true. We've all, at some point in time in our careers, probably done that. I always call it in our teenage phase of our career. You know, any of you have teenagers at home who remember that? Your teenagers always knew everything and could do everything better than mom and dad. And they always had another opinion. When they're kids, they go, well, okay, and they do everything. And then when they're adults, they realize what jerks they were when they were teenagers, right? All I'm saying is just be adults about it. And if you get that, you get feedback and it's not what you want to hear, and it's still bugging you, then get on the phone and say, Darwin, can we get together? I want to talk to you. And just say, Darwin, you know, you gave me this feedback, and I got to tell you, I went home and I tossed and turned, I couldn't sleep at night, and I'm just saying, God, am I really that lousy? Am I that bad? I mean, tell me, what do I need to do differently? Because now I'm feeling like I let you down. And then it gives him an opportunity to what? Provide additional coaching to him. But don't badmouth him whatever you do. And likewise, the reverse is true. If you're a mentor and you've got a mentee coming in, I'm bleeding my soul here, aren't I? I'm telling you everything. I'm taking away all the obstacles because I'm just like, you're like my priest in the confessional. Whatever I tell you stays here, right? Or it's like when you're in Vegas, it stays in Vegas, right? When I'm in your office talking to you, it stays there. It doesn't go any farther. And so if we both do that, then the quality and the credibility of that mentoring, that coaching, stays intact, doesn't it? When that breaks down, it goes away. Keep the door open with your mentor, number 7. You know, you may find that maybe your mentor isn't the right one for you. We've had that happen. Maybe 2-3 months into it, you feel like, oh my God, I don't think I have the right mentor. So what do you do? What do you think you do? What would you do in that case, Leo? What do you think? You know, I'd call in.
If I was the mentee or the mentor?
If you were the mentee and you didn't think your mentor was the right one, what would you do?
Well, personally, I would just have that honest conversation with them and let them know that perhaps this was, that how I feel, they might be feeling the same way.
Yeah.
And then ask if they would maybe see something, make a suggestion who might be. Honest conversation.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Well, and sometimes we have the best intentions, don't we? What they say, the road to hell is paved with the best intentions, isn't that right? And so we may have the best intentions going in. Maybe I'm your mentor. We get involved in a merger, an acquisition, or some new project, right? And say I'm at Whitby, and all of a sudden I get pulled in, or I'm at Heritage, right? And it's like, whoa, just a few things on our plate right now. And all of a sudden, maybe I can't fulfill my responsibilities to you as a mentor the way I should. If that's the case, I think it's better as a mentor to raise your hand and say, you know what, this is going on, and I'm not going to be able to do a quality job in being your mentor for the next couple months. Let's switch somebody else in. It'll probably be good for you when the dust settles here. If I'm available, then boom, I'd be glad to step back in. I think that's just really important. And then the last thing, don't have your mentors do the homework. You can seek advice, and that's fine. We want you to seek advice. So mentors, you're off the hook. And if they start asking you, if they ask you to do homework, don't do it. But how many of you have gone to Pacific Coast Banking School? You mentioned that you have. How many here are PCBS grads? If you've gone to PCBS, you know that you'd get your extension assignment, you'd go back, you'd work in study groups, and you'd meet with executives from your bank, wouldn't you? And you'd ask them the questions, your extension problem questions, and you'd get their feedback. But there's more to it than that. It's not just getting the answer. It's understanding, how does our bank do something? It's understanding that first, right? Secondly, maybe it's understanding the rationale behind why we do what we do. That's the second part. The third part is you stepping back and critically analyzing and saying, I know what we do, I know why we do it, do I agree or not? Is there another way that we should be doing this or not? Because we want you to be critical thinkers. We don't want you just to say, we're going to keep Mark stepping the same way we've always done it for years and years and years as an organization. We want you to be critical thinkers. We want you to challenge the thought process at your own organization. If you're seeing something different in your study group, and you got 4 other banks that are giving you feedback, why would you not want to take that back to your mentor in that first 5-minute conversation after that class? Share with them, hey, this is what we're doing. You know, so you sit, Brady is the, David, so you sit down with David and say, hey, David, here's what we learned. You know, why aren't we doing this at Sound? Or could we do this at Sound? Is it even possible? Have we ever tried this before? Because that's one of the benefits. Dave talked about the relationships that you develop with each other in this program, the networking that takes place, but the other big part of it is learning how other community banks do the same thing, addressing. We want you to be extremely proactive, darn right aggressive in your learning in the classroom. You will find me, if you see me in a classroom where I'm raising my hand asking questions, what do you think that's telling me? I'm engaged, but what else am I upset? What else? What do you think I'm saying?
We're not.
Pardon?
We aren't.
Yeah, you aren't. That's right. If you start seeing me do that, that's a sign to you to say, come on, pick it up. Because you're going to find some people, as instructors, feel much more comfortable coming in and doing what? Being talking heads. And this is supposed to be experiential learning. You spend 4 to 6 hours completing your homework assignment, meeting with your mentors, talking to other people at your organization, right? Meeting with your study group. There's 4 things that you probably put 10 hours into preparing for this class. Okay? Do you want somebody to come in and just yak at you after you've done all this work and discovered all these things? I don't. I don't want them to do that. So if that happens and you start seeing me ask questions, that's your sign to say, kick it up a couple notches. You know, start peppering questions out. Like Dave said, pop off. It's okay to do that. Right? Be proactive in what you're doing. If I don't see you doing that, then I'm going to go up to the teacher anyway at the break and say, you're talking way too much. And that's part of my role there, because I'm there at every class. Patty knows, because she's been in class with me, right? You've got to get involved, right? So I'll do that. I'll talk with them. If you don't like what's going on in class, you come and talk to me. And I'll talk to the teacher. Okay? Because this is about you, and it's about maximizing the opportunity you have to learn in the classroom. And if it's not right for you, then you need to let me know so that I can fix it. Okay? So, any other questions, comments? Any questions from the mentors, the students about this? It's assertive, isn't it? It's a 12-month sprint. Actually, an 11-month sprint. You party in December, right? Yeah, the graduation. So it's an 11-month sprint, but it's 12 classes. So, and we talked earlier about you maybe being a little bit nervous. That's okay. But if you do your homework ahead of time, you meet with your mentors, talk with other people in your organization, meet with your study group, you're going to have a lot more knowledge about that topic than you ever would have had you not done that. To benefit your classmates, do not come to class without being prepared. It's a disservice to all your classmates and to your bank. Because your banks pay good money to have you here because they believe in you as being a future leader within your organization. And it's a huge honor to be here. It's very gratifying for us at WBA to see the graduates that we have here today, to see how many of our graduates have been promoted either during or after this program, how many of them have gone on to Pacific Coast Banking School and been very successful there. So this is a wonderful program. It's now getting national recognition where we have other states coming to us wanting to buy the rights to it. So you are very, very privileged, I think, and should be very honored that your institutions have put you in this learning opportunity, and all I would say is maximize it. Get the most out of it that you can. You will never have this morning back again, will you? You'll never have that class that we have tomorrow back again. So soak up as much as you can. I'll close with this, unless you have any questions. When I was finishing graduate school, I met with my advisor. And I said, I really want to go on and get a PhD. And he said, well, why? And I said, well, I really am into the topic of human development. And he said, well, that's great. But he says, you don't need any more self-discipline because you're a very disciplined individual. He says, this is my advice to you. Live your life as if it were a dry sponge. And every time you came across the topic of human development, you absorbed it like a dry sponge would absorb moisture. And if you lived your life that way, by the time you die, you will be just as knowledgeable, if not more so, about human development than you ever would have by going through a PhD program. Now use that same analogy in this classroom. Right now, your sponges are dry. You're dry, aren't you? And by the time this class is over, I want to see you be dripping wet with the amount of knowledge that you've been able to pick up in this program. So thank you very much. Any questions anybody has? Well, it's really a pleasure. Again, congratulations for students for being nominated by your banks, for being here, and mentors, thank you so much for the work that I know you're going to be doing with your students. So thank you. So with that, should we take about a 10-minute break and then go back into our main meeting room, and we'll get started there a little after 1:30. Thank you.
Yeah.